Now we're in business. Let's start it again. Identify yourself and we're in business.
I am Talitha Stevens Bailey, and I've lived there at Vinland all of my life. I can first read the first thing I remember about the Vinland Fair was being a small child being drug around through the crowd by my parents, and also that my mother made chicken pie for the food stand. And these chicken pies were made at home, not here at the fair. They were made at home and brought in.
And had to stay hot.
And they had to stay hot. And we had a huge old cook stove in that food stand down there on the south end of it. And it was very warm because they stoked it with wood. And I can remember people would bring their small children in there to get warm because we had this fair in last part of September. And it would be kind of cool once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's the first thing I can remember about the fair. And then as a child in grade school, we participated in the parade here at the fair. And each school would have a drill. And of course, they had a prize for the one who had the best drill. I don't remember that the Vinland grade school ever got a prize, but we tried.
Now, did they have floats still at that time? I've heard about floats.
Yes, they did, but it wasn't very long after that they quit doing it. And it was I think it was more a case of, by that time we were getting into the heart of the Depression, and it was not quite as easy to do those things as it had been before.
Yeah.
Also, most of my growing up years were done in the Second World War years, and during that time the fair kind of declined because there wasn't much. There wasn't much to exhibit because there was lots of canning and sewing, but there wasn't a lot of material to sew with unless you used feed sacks. And there was a category for the best feed sack dress.
Oh, really?
Yes. And several years, they had quite a collection of feed sack dresses because that is all the cotton material that you really got.
Yeah.
You could walk into a drugstore store and they might have 3 or 4 bolts of material of some kind, but it might not be anything that would be suitable for what you were doing.
Yeah.
So, in fact, my mother made a quilt top, which is exhibited down here, and most of those pieces are feed sack.
Yeah. With that. And it made a difference too, probably, because the men were not at home.
No,
a lot of men weren't.
We didn't have manpower.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. There just wasn't anyone to do what was ordinarily done, and so it sort of declined. The buildings declined. But after the war was over, then things began to pick up, and people got home. And, they said, "Oh, we're going to die. We're going to do it."
Yeah. So the 50s were pretty staunch.
The 50s began to rejuvenate the fair, actually. They weren't, it wasn't great guns as it is now, but they were climbing. I think in the 60s we had some more shows. I think in the 60s we also had a motorcycle rodeo. And I know that then they started the tractor pull in the 70s and late 60s, early 70s. And that has been a big crowd drawer.
Isn't that funny? That's the thing that really draws the crowd.
That's right. Yeah. They love to see this, and I don't care if they've watched it every year. They still come back to see it because maybe somebody that lost last year will win this year.
Did it seem like? I mean, it's always been so many comments about it being such a community. Even when the Grange was the head of it, it was such a community event.
This is true. The whole community came. They might not exactly work the fair, but they attended the fair. It was the social event in the community for the year.
Yeah.
because that was about the most getting together you did. And it's like someone said one time, why are so many of these families that went to school together down here, why have so many of them married each other? And the truth of the whole matter was, there wasn't any way to get anywhere. I can remember even in my time, when I was a small child, going to Lawrence was a great ordeal. I mean, it was a big trip.
Yeah.
It was a long way to Lawrence. And now you bop in there in 15 minutes.
Yeah. But this was, you could meet somebody kind of like, this was a dating situation then.
That's right. And if somebody asked you out when you were at the fair, and you went, I wanted to know if they could take you home, that was, boy, were you on the top of the social ladder.
Ooh.
You had been asked out at the fair.
Oh.
It might not last longer than a week or two, but you were asked out at the fair. But it was the social event in the community.
Yeah.
And that was another thing, because of the Depression, everyone could come here to the fair, and they were sort of on compromise.
Yeah.
It wasn't, my house is bigger than your house, and you live on a better road than I do. It was, everybody was down here, and everybody was seeing the same thing, doing the same thing, and it was a wonderful time.
Yeah.
And of course, it was wonderful to have people come and present entertainment for them.
Yeah.
That was a big thing. And I remember that we had a fellow in Baldwin, Leo Smith, and he would always bring his PA system down here because he sold radios and appliances. And he would bring his PA system down here for the fair. And that was
That'd be a big
thrill.
thing.
Oh, gee, you could hear it, even though it's over there on the stage. You can be clear back here, way back, and you could hear it. But it made everybody, everybody got to be on the same level.
Yeah. And it did, and if you had the best sheep or if you had the best cow, that it didn't matter, like you said, what kind of barn it came from. It was what kind of farmer you were.
That's right.
With that, and so
it was just one of those things where, let's put it this way: it didn't matter who or where you came from, what you'd been doing, or how you got here. Everybody was having a good time.
Yeah, with that.
Yeah.
Kind of talk too is because, like I said, now if I remember correctly, the first fair, the 1907, so this is the 100, was held on your family's farm.
Yes. Yeah.
So I mean, you got a big connection.
That's right. It was held in the same area in which I now live, where my house is right now. That was the parking side of the fairgrounds, and then the south side, which belonged to the Hoskinson family. That was where the exhibits were and where they had their picnic ground.
So you could just walk right on down to the
Sure,
fair.
everything was just right there, and all you had to do was walk across the road, and there wasn't any traffic to worry about, because it was all teams and wagons. If anybody had a car, they were, that was really a novelty.
Why is it that you think that your family, I mean, the Hoskinson and the Stevens there, that was pretty big to say, we'll donate or we'll have it on our land. Why do you think they did that?
I think that it was a fact that anybody that could help the community would help the community.
Yeah.
And if you needed something, that was back in the days when if your neighbor was in need, you jumped in and went over.
Yeah.
I can remember when my father passed away, and within a week's time, it was in the spring, and within a week's time, we had the whole farm full of people with tractors and horses plowing and planting, and you don't generally get that.
No. Again, it's that
But it was
community.
a case of, if we're going to help the community and the community is going to do this, then we'll pitch our in and do our part
Yeah.
too.
It really does come back, doesn't it?
It's
Casting
the
your
same
breath.
thing as right now, you get ready, well, it's time to have the fair, and everybody comes and helps and works.
With it. Did you bring pies this year?
Oh, yes.
What did you bring this year?
Pineapple pies, and that was all. I didn't exhibit anything.
Well, the pineapple pies are worth it for me. So, what was it like too? As I asked Nora a little bit too, when it was the changing of the guard. There were certain families and certain ones that you knew were going to be in charge, but it's been 100 years now, and
That's
so
right.
we've had a couple of different ones, like the younger generations bringing it up,
That's
and
right.
now it's another generation. It's amazing to see how that works.
That's right. I think you have to have people who are willing to take a chance. They have to be. They have to be like Christopher Columbus. They're willing to sail out there, not knowing what's going to happen. I think quite frequently when it's been left up to people of the community, and especially when it was in the hands of the Grange. The Grange was a good organization, but they got to the place where they were afraid that something would come in, and disrupt their ordered fair. And so I think that that was one of the obstacles that we had
Yeah.
when people began coming in with new and different ideas. But I think they begin to see if we don't change our ways and if we don't move up, we are dead.
It's not going to last that 100 years.
That's right. It will be here 100 years. But it was very hard to get people to change what they'd always done. But there is one thing that has remained, and that is that there are no carnivals, and there is no sale of goods except the food. You can come, you can say, hey, we will sell you this, only you have to do it after the fair.
Yeah.
And that has been the rule, and it remains.
But that's the reason it's probably lasted so long, too. The commercialization's not
It's
there.
like somebody said last night, the little kids were running around, and jumping up and down, and a bunch of them were over here and over there. And somebody said, well, you don't have to worry about anybody snatching them or running over them or anything
Yeah.
here. And I said, no, that's part of the fair. That's part of what everybody likes.
Yeah, with that. If you were to say there's one thing, like I said, you lived your whole life coming to the fair.
Right.
From the time you can remember back. What is the one or two things that are special for you?
I think that the idea of having the programs in the evenings, the bands and the talent show and things like that, I think that's one of the special things that brings everyone out, and I know I particularly enjoy that. And the second thing is the fact that they have allowed the 4-H to come in with their exhibits, and they can compete with other 4-H kids. They don't have to compete against the adults.
Yeah.
And until the time that the 4-H division was formed, kids, if they wanted to compete, they were competing against the seasoned
Yeah.
cooks and canners and livestock raisers of the community.
Yeah.
And so it was unfair for them to have to compete with the older generation. But now we have the 4-H division, and to me that's very special because I worked with that
Oh, yeah.
a good many years. I was in 4-H and I worked with it a long time.
Yeah. So it's just like in a connection all the way through, isn't
Right.
it?
Yes.
So,
Of course, my grandfather and my father, they were some of the people who participated in the early fairs and had ideas that some of them worked and some of them didn't. But there has always been a family connection to the fair, and as I got older, I was asked to help do things, and so it's you pass it along, and you know that hey, this is something that you do every year, and it's like somebody said the other day, well, don't you get tired of making pies every year? And I said, well, no, that's just something you've got it on the calendar, and hey, when fair time rolls around, you're going to make pie, and you're going to make time to help in the food stand. You're going to make time to help, like being in here, and so it's just a community thing that you do.
well, thanks for your family for doing what all they've done all the years and things that you've done, because something doesn't last 100 years without folks like you.
No, everybody has to pitch in, and there are so many people who have gone way above and beyond the call of duty to see that this keeps going, and it's going to keep going.
So, I mean, it's a community thing, but it's also a labor of love. So
That's right.
with that, well, thank you, Talitha.
You're welcome.
Okay, so you said you have a quilt that's actually block pieces of the Presbyterian ladies.
Made by the Presbyterian ladies back in the 30s, maybe 40s, and most of those people are gone now.
Yeah.
And but I was glad to put it together so that it could be saved for future generations, because Gladys Rowe gave it to Bob, and he gave the box to me, and so I have that. I brought quilts to the Vinland Fair for years.
Yeah.
But after my husband had his stroke, I kind of got out of quilting, so I haven't brought any for several years. But I'm working now. I hope next year I have some to bring.
Why was it important for you to bring quilts before?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a quilter. I've quilted
Oh, yeah.
for a long, long time. And I just love quilts and quilting.
You know, seeing how many of the quilts this year are the ones, the antique ones with the ladies' names on it.
Yes.
That's kind of an important way to quilt too, isn't it? To have that little bit of names to it. Honey, no. You know, because it does.
I know it.
Because, like you were saying, the patterns don't mean as much as the names.
It's the memory of the names that are on there. That's right. That's right. They're very important. Album quilts, they call them,
Oh,
when they
yeah,
put the names across the block.
with that. So you said that you, for years, had brought, and I know you have. When was the first quilt you brought?
Oh, I don't know. I started quilting in '69, and I don't know how long it took me to. We were farmers, and we didn't take part in the fair. My husband has done a lot of volunteer work down here. He loves the Vinland Fair,
Oh, yeah.
and so I don't know. Probably in the '70s, late '70s or '80s, I started bringing quilts.
With it. So, and it's always an important part. You walk into the barn and there they
Yes, yes, and get to see them all. They've had some beautiful quilts over the years.
are. Yes, they have.
Lovely.
You know, it's kind of nice to, because it's an opportunity to see them all out.
Yes, yes, displayed.
And for a quilter, I'm sure that's kind of a neat thing to walk in and say,
Yes, it is. I enjoy seeing quilts wherever I go.
So it's just neat to have that little bit of additional, like I said, 1930s, but here you've got it and it's coming back
Yes.
down this way.
Yes.
Well, thanks a lot for your thought.
Well, thank you. Thank you.